I grew up here. I went to this school. My cousins went to school. My brothers went to school. My uncles went to this school. And nothing like this has ever happened. So I think it's a bit shocking.
A child tasered by police. The dramatic end to a confrontation at a GTA school.
Tonight, emerging details about the incident and the response. Good evening. What would justify Durham police using a taser on a 12-year-old girl?
Tonight, officers are defending their actions as we learn more about the chain of events that unfolded. CTV's Beth McDonnell joins us from Sir Albert Love Catholic School in Oshawa with tonight's top story. Beth.
Nathan, this school teaches kindergarten to grade 8. The violence broke out yesterday morning, but tonight there are questions about why it started and how it ended. The violence started around 11:30 in the morning at Sir Albert Love Catholic School. Durham Regional Police say they were called when a 12-year-old girl was actively assaulting 2 staff members and a student.
Scared for them, obviously, because they're helpless.
This woman says her sister is in grade 7 and was one of the victims.
She told me that the attacker made a mean comment towards her, so she took a moment and went to the bathroom, and that's when the attacker followed her to the bathroom and then started pulling her hair and put her down to the ground.
When officers initially located her, she was armed with scissors.
Police say they tried to calm the 12-year-old girl and she dropped the scissors, but was irate. Officers, unaware a nearby door was unlocked, say she then took off to the schoolyard where she attacked another staff member.
To stop that assault, the officer made the decision to deploy his conducted energy weapon.
This security video shows what appears to be students running into the schoolyard before someone falls to the ground. The group starts running back to the school as 2 people come around the person on the ground. This man, who lives across from the yard, says he saw a tall person in black clothing go into the ambulance.
And one police officer went into the ambulance with the person, and then the ambulance took off, but there was no lights flashing or anything like that.
Parents speaking to CTV News are shocked about the violence and the response.
It's a little concerning, considering nothing like this has happened, at the school before.
I don't think the police should be using a taser on a 12-year-old. They need better training.
Police say the incident was captured on the officer's body-worn camera.
And the behavior that was being displayed at the time led the officer to make the decision to deploy his taser. And that's the decision that he made. It was effective. The female that was taken into custody did not suffer any injuries as a result of it.
The school board says it has a crisis response team which mobilizes upon an event, and its focus right now is on supporting staff and students.
We will continue to train all of our staff around safety procedures so that we can continue to certainly endeavor to make as safe a building as possible for all of our students.
Ontario's Special Investigations Unit has not been called in over the police interaction with the 12-year-old girl. It says it would invoke a mandate if a serious injury was suffered. Several people told us today the accused has had problems at the school in the past. Police told us the staff member that was injured was in the schoolyard and then went to hospital with a head injury. The 12-year-old girl has been charged with 4 counts of assault and 1 count of mischief. Reporting live in Oshawa, I'm Beth McDonnell. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Beth. A major traffic disruption on the QEW today. A truck fire led to the closure of Niagara-bound lanes west of Burlington. This is viewer video of the fire, which happened around 10:30 this morning. The OPP say it broke out after a tractor-trailer crashed into a concrete median.
We turn to tensions that continue to rise between Canada and India.
Both countries have now expelled diplomats following Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's bombshell allegation that there's credible evidence linking Indian agents to the execution of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil. CTV's Kevin Gallagher reports.
Summoned by his counterpart, Canada's High Commissioner to India, Cameron McKay, learned a member of his mission will be sent home. The latest diplomatic shot fired after Canada expelled an Indian diplomat yesterday.
This is going to really put a chill on a relationship that was already running on fumes.
The Indian government dismissed Justin Trudeau's allegations it played a role in the murder of Sikh activist and Canadian citizen Harpreet Singh Nijjar. The Prime Minister told India to take this seriously and cooperate with a criminal investigation.
It is extremely serious and it has far-reaching consequences.
Trudeau says Canadian intelligence started to connect Indian agents to the assassination-style shooting of Nijjar earlier this summer. Opposition leaders want more information.
The Prime Minister needs to come clean with all the facts. We need to know all of the evidence possible so that Canadians can make judgments on that.
The next stage that's going to happen is going to be an investigation where the Canadian justice system will evaluate the weight of the evidence, and a public inquiry which will independently assess the weight of the intelligence.
Many in Canada's Sikh community say Indian threats are commonplace.
They've been advised to make changes to their pattern of living, whether moving or otherwise.
India considered Nijjar a terrorist, while Sikhs call him a human rights activist who advocated for an independent homeland known as Khalistan. His family says he was beloved by his community.
This is just step one in the family's eyes and the community that, we now have evidence that India is involved and there is foreign interference, but we expect more as well in the coming days or future.
Before his murder, Nijjar said Canadian intelligence officials had warned him of threats to his life. Now there are growing calls to improve security for other Sikh activists in Canada. Kevin Gallagher, CTV News, Ottawa.
The GTA is home to a large and diverse Indo-Canadian population. CTV's Raheem Ladani is live in Brampton with more on how the dispute is impacting people here. Raheem.
Nathan, Hardeep Singh Nijjar was killed on the west coast of Canada, but his name is well known here in the GTA, and details of his death have sparked strong opinions. Outside this Sikh temple in Brampton, there is some hesitation when it comes to speaking about the death of Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
There's a lot of things to say, but sometimes what happens is that things might go controversial if we, this is a very sensitive topic to talk about.
While some members of the community are feeling a sense of justice by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the Canadian government.
I'm proud of him because he's taking care of the country. That attack is not on the Nijjar, that attack is on Canada.
Others want to see the proof that connects agents of India's government to the murder of Nijjar in Surrey, British Columbia this past June.
We need some definite proof regarding that. If we get show in the parliament, then it will be some make a solution.
Allegations of India's foreign interference has raised tensions between the Canadian and Indian governments to an all-time high and has left many people who call both countries home worried about their own safety.
After some time, I have to travel to India to meet my parents, so I am worried. So how could I go there, or I would be returned back to Canada or not? So we have worried.
Nijjar was an activist, and the Indian government had issued an arrest warrant for his advocacy for a separate Sikh state in India's Punjab region, which activists call Khalistan.
There are some people who would always think that, he sacrificed for the right cause, just cause. Now, just cause is always, any just cause to me could not be a just cause to you or to him, right?
Balwinder Singh hosts a local radio show and says centuries of underlying issues make India's relationship with its own people complex, but that it's important for those responsible in Nijjar's death to be held accountable.
People think that we are safe, and if you are not safe here in Canada, then where else on the earth you are safe?
Security to protect sovereignty. As a result of this situation, trade talks between Canada and India have stalled, and people here in this community say they hope a resolution can at least be resolved on that front because they are concerned that any prolonged pause will hurt the livelihood of family and friends in both countries. Reporting live, I'm Raheem Ladani. Nathan, I'll send it back to you.
All right, thank you, Raheem. And you can monitor any developments with this story on our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca.
Next to a CTV News investigation and new developments in the Greenbelt controversy.
We're learning more about a trip to Las Vegas attended by a Conservative MPP, a member of the Premier's staff, and a land developer. It's raising questions about what was discussed and what was disclosed to the province's Integrity Commissioner. CTV's John Woodward reports.
This is the famous Wynn Hotel in Las Vegas, and as the Integrity Commissioner heard, the hotel was the site of an accidental meeting in the lobby between developer Shakir Rehmatullah, MPP Khalid Rashid, and Premier's office staffer Amin Massoudi in December of 2019. Important as Commissioner David Wake explored possibilities in how Rehmatullah could have been tipped off that Greenbelt land was up for grabs, something Wake found was more likely than not. Tips that could be worth billions as the value of farmland rises fast when it's out of the Greenbelt and can be developed.
It seems to be more in the interest of a handful than the greater public good, and I think that's what's really troubling here.
3 hotel employees tell CTV News their records don't match the official story, saying on February 1st, 2020 at 4 p.m., all 3 got manicures, pedicures, and massages at the same time. That's a lot more than a chance lobby meeting and a sign there could be more to dig into, says NDP leader Merritt Stiles.
What we're hearing now seems inconsistent with what a minister told the Integrity Commissioner, and that's very concerning.
We didn't hear back today from Rehmatullah, a Ford friend who has said his Greenbelt plans long predated last year's land swap. But late Tuesday, Rashid's ministerial spokespeople wrote us saying he just got confused, saying the information that was shared with the Integrity Commissioner was mistakenly based off the original itinerary for the December 2019 trip. It was discovered that the December 2019 trip was rebooked and took place on January 30th to February 1st, 2020. The hotel provided Minister Rashid the invoice showing proof of payment to the hotel on Minister Rashid's credit card. Upon receiving the information, Minister Rashid contacted the Integrity Commissioner's office to correct the record and has shared the supporting hotel invoice and proof of payment paid for by the minister. All relevant information and records are with the Integrity Commissioner. Stiles said that's not a full answer.
I'd say I think you need to straighten this out. You need to come clean about all the details.
Betting Ontarians agree with her. So Rashid's staff clarified the timeline, but not some of the things that happened on that trip. We've asked them about the massages as well and what he plans to tell the Integrity Commissioner about them. We've yet to hear back. John Woodward, CTV News.
And still to come, the Greenbelt controversy and the Premier's approval in rural Ontario. Doug Ford takes a ride in the country, how he was received at this year's plowing match.
And whether in farmers' fields or in the city, a beautiful day to be outside. Tons of sun, a gorgeous blue sky, and really perfect temperatures for these final days of summer. Lindsay Morrison is here with a look at what we're working with, and there's a lot to like.
There is a lot to like, Michelle, although it is worth pointing out that overnight tonight it's going to be a little bit cool. We have a widespread frost advisory in place, and we'll show you that. Part of the reason, these clear skies, that's going to allow the temperature to fall tonight. Winds that have been gusty coming out of the northwest, they're going to ease as we continue through the evening hours, and our comfortable temperatures are going to become a little bit chilly. Overnight tonight in Toronto, we're talking about 8 degrees, but it will be cooler for areas just outside the city like Uxbridge and Peterborough, as well as Muskoka, all tonight under a frost advisory. We'll talk more about this and the rest of the week's forecast coming up. For now, Nathan, over to you.
All right, thanks, Lindsay. More evidence tonight about ever-increasing costs in Canada impacting your bottom line.
Inflation rose for the second straight month, and with it, concerns interest rates may go up again, too. CTV's Sean Leathong joins us live with more on the factors driving up prices of the things we need every day. Sean.
Well, Michelle and Nathan, the Bank of Canada has set 2025 for the time that they expect the inflation rate to come down to 2%. But until that time, it's going to be tough. And if anyone wants some relief on interest rates, it's not coming anytime soon. From the grocery store to the gas pump, inflation is once again on the rise. And
everything's more expensive.
Today, Stats Canada releasing the Consumer Price Index for August, and prices are up 4% year over year. That's an increase from July's CPI number of 3.3%.
It sucks. It's hard to make the week to manage throughout the week.
Can't afford gas, can't afford food. Look, I have 2 dogs, man. So it's really hard,
According to StatsCan, the main driver for inflation in August was the price of fuel, and experts say it's only getting worse.
By the end of the month, gasoline will eventually have to reflect these much higher oil prices. And of course, that means much higher prices for consumers, probably back to the 175, 180 range.
The cost of a mortgage and rent has seen a spike as a result of rising interest rate, but the increase in fuel serves as a startling indicator for some economists.
I'd be concerned that we might be looking at another increase in interest rates in either the October or the December decision of the bank.
The inflation rate has been cut in half from a high of 8.1% in June of last year, but the constant rise in prices is being felt by all consumers.
I would say probably for a week it was around like $75, $80, and I'm easily spending over $100 now just to feed myself.
Yomi Michaels came to Canada from Nigeria to get his master's and now works as an auditor for a bank.
I feel overwhelmed because my pay is not going up, but my groceries are going up. So I pay more now, I pay more rent, I pay more for groceries, but my salary is still the same.
And some say now it's just enough to make ends meet.
You have to cut out like basically all your, if you wanted to go out to restaurants and stuff, it's not really in the plans anymore.
We're just making ends meet with food and gas. We're not heading in a good direction.
As a difficult time is making way for a bleak future. And Dan McTagg did want to point to one tiny bright spot. He says the conditions are right for a drop at the gas tank of 8 cents tomorrow and then 2 more cents the following day, but that will be very short-lived before prices come back up by October. Reporting live, I'm Sean Lee. Michelle, send it back to you.
Thanks, Sean. Another day, another looming labor dispute deadline.
Talks continue tonight between the union representing auto workers and the Ford Motor Company after Unifor received what it calls a substantive offer ahead of its midnight strike deadline last night. CTV's Allison Hirsch joins us live from the Sheraton Center with the latest. Allison.
Both sides have remained really quiet today as the negotiations continue just inside the Sheraton here behind me. Now, this comes for an extension after Ford Canada brought forward an offer to the union in the last few minutes before the deadline. Negotiations haven't left the boardroom as Unifor and Ford Canada remain at the table on an extended deadline, working to strike a deal.
There is still much negotiating to do, but this is as serious as it gets, and the consequences are real.
Unifor President Lana Payne made this address last night before Ford Canada came to them with a last-minute offer just ahead of the midnight deadline. The union calls it substantive, so negotiations were extended by 24 hours, but it says members should be ready to strike.
If there is a strike, this will be a total strike. Every single one of Unifor's 5,600 members at Ford in Canada will be on picket lines.
In a statement, Ford Canada's VP says, in part, we will continue to work collaboratively with Unifor to create a blueprint for the automotive industry that supports a vibrant and sustainable future in Canada.
It looks like Ford is motivated to get a deal in order to avoid a strike, but it's also clear that Unifor's own strategy has shifted as a result of the UAW strike south of the border.
In the U.S., about 13,000 workers for the big three American automakers, Ford, GM, and Stellantis, are on the picket line. And the union is threatening further job action on Friday if negotiations don't make serious progress.
They could double our wages, not raise the price of vehicles, and they would still make billions in profits.
Ford's CEO has claimed meeting the union's request for a 40% wage increase and better benefits could bankrupt the company. And it has made an historic offer, which includes a 20% wage increase.
You shouldn't have to choose between paying a mortgage and paying a car note.
North of the border, where job action has yet to take place, Unifor has rejected 2 previous offers from Ford Canada, but no word yet on this latest one.
Unifor's leadership may think that gap is significant enough to make a different set of strategic choices. But the tail doesn't wag the dog, and the UAW's militancy has raised expectations for auto workers on both sides of the border.
Pensions and the wage package remain top priorities. We are in the final hours of this second extended deadline where both sides still seem to be hard at work at the negotiation table inside discussing everything. We know that pensions and wages were sticking points for the union, so no doubt those are on the table. We'll wait and see what happens. No doubt they'll probably use every minute they can before the deadline of midnight. Reporting live, I'm Allison Hurst. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Allison. Still to come, could there be a light at the end of the tunnel for Toronto and its big budgetary woes? Relief and optimism out of City Hall today as the province and city agree to work out a new funding deal.
A playground was unveiled in Brampton today in honor of a mother and her 3 children killed by an impaired driver 3 years ago.
This will be a place that we will see picnics happening. I think we will see the many children of all her friends gathering here, and they will build memories and they will talk about Carolina and the girls. And I think that's the most important thing. And the children will remember who their friends were, and those stories will live on.
Family and friends of Carolina Chisulo and her 3 daughters, Clara, Liliana, and Mila, gathered for the unveiling of a memorial playground at Bramalea and Countryside Drive. They were killed in June of 2020. The driver who hit them was sentenced to 17 years in prison.
And a park in Bradford has been renamed in honor of a South Simcoe officer killed in the line of duty.
Devin took his job very seriously. He was a really good officer. He did a lot of extra things like the emergency response unit and the ceremonial unit. So he really, he lived our values every day.
Constable Devin Northrup was fatally shot while responding to a call in South Simcoe last fall, along with Constable Morgan Russell. A large crowd gathered yesterday afternoon, including members of Northrup's family. The ceremony began with a tribute procession led by the Color Guard.
It's a long-standing tradition in the province, and today, Premier Doug Ford and members of his party attended the international plowing match.
But the question is, how is the Greenbelt controversy impacting his grassroots support? CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris has more.
It's an annual celebration of farming, agriculture, and rural life. For provincial politicians, a chance to meet and greet in the fresh air. But the whiff of the Greenbelt scandal was all around. Progressive Conservatives tried to keep the mood light, the Premier smiling and waving to the crowd.
No one's done more for farmers than our party has. They appreciate what we do. We have a great working relationship.
Reception for the Premier was mostly warm, though some people yelled out.
Get my Greenbelt back!
Losing Greenbelt lands drew out tears.
He's been doing so many things that haven't been good for the environment.
And anger.
How much of Ontario's farmland has been covered up, paved over, built on, and now we're doing more.
I'm not his friend if he goes through with it, that's all. I mean, how can you run a world if you don't keep nature and you don't keep natural things around?
The Premier acknowledges the vital role farmers play.
People don't realize the billions and billions of dollars of ag products that get shipped out of our province.
This is typically a nonpartisan event, but opposition parties went there on the Greenbelt.
Those farmlands are at risk, and that's why your Ontario NDP is working so hard to protect your farmlands and your Greenbelt, right?
The interim Liberal leader says the elephant at the plowing match couldn't go unaddressed.
For the Premier to try to sugarcoat it, try not to talk about it, try not to address it, is wrong.
The Premier's response is simply that his government is returning some land to the Greenbelt, but more could be removed after a review of all 2 million acres is done. Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
The 78th session of the UN General Assembly began today with the leader of the world body painting a very bleak picture.
Our world is becoming unhinged. Geopolitical tensions are rising. Global challenges are mounting. And we seem incapable of coming together to respond. We confront a host of existential threats, from the climate crisis to disruptive technologies, and we do so at a time of chaotic transition. Around the globe,
Antonio Guterres told the assembled nations that they have a responsibility to achieve a compromise in building a common future of peace and prosperity. Over the coming week, the leaders will deliver speeches on geopolitical instability, inequality, public health, and Russia's war in Ukraine. Today, U.S. President Joe Biden warned no nation can be secure if Moscow is allowed to succeed.
And Ukraine's president addressed the General Assembly for the first time in person today, warning other leaders they too could face what is happening in his country.
We have to stop it. We must act united to defeat the aggressor and focus all our capabilities and energy on addressing these challenges. As nukes are restrained, likewise the aggressor must be restrained and all his tools and methods of war
Volodymyr Zelensky says the Kremlin is weaponizing everything from food and energy to abducted children, and also noted the war's effect on global food and fuel supplies. The president will visit Toronto on Friday after delivering a speech to the Canadian Parliament that morning.
Canada's Prime Minister is also at the United Nations tonight.
We need a functioning global financial safety net, one that is ready to deal with a world of systemic economic shocks.
Right now, Justin Trudeau is attending a summit on sustainable development. Officials say it is a focus of his while in New York. In 2015, leaders agreed on 17 goals to build a world of health, progress, and opportunity for all, and to pay for it. But that ambitious effort has largely stalled.
5 Americans detained for years in Iran are back on home soil tonight. The prisoners landed at a base in Virginia early this morning to the sound of clapping and cheers. They were freed as part of a deal that includes the release of nearly $6 billion in frozen Iranian assets. Tehran says 2 of the 5 Iranian prisoners have decided to stay in the U.S.
Australia's second most populous cities imposed a total fire ban for the first time in almost 3 years. A ban's been declared for the greater Sydney area and coastal communities to the south. It's because of a heightened wildfire danger caused by unusually hot and dry conditions. The city matched its September maximum temperature record of 34.6 degrees today. Authorities have forecast a very destructive wildfire season during the approaching southern hemisphere summer. There are 61 active blazes in New South Wales state, 13 out of control. We have some breaking news here at home. The CTV News shoppers over the scene of an apartment fire in Scarborough. There's a live look. It appears crews have extinguished the blaze on the 4th floor of the building at Kennedy and Eglinton.
Coming up, he may have pledged his love for the Sikhs, but Drake says he's found a new place to call home. Still ahead, the Toronto rapper's big announcement while on stage in Houston.
And I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, the Ontario government is bringing in new rules to protect temporary workers, but some smaller recruiting firms say the regulations could put them out of business. They have to put up $25,000 if they want a license. I'll have my reports. That's just ahead.
Well, tonight is one of those nights. If you have any plants that you want to keep protecting at this time of year, bring them indoors, or if you can't do that, maybe cover them up with a blanket. 8 degrees overnight for us locally, but look at Peterborough and Bancroft. 1 for the low, maybe 2 in places like Parry Sound, 4 degrees in Orillia and Waterloo. We are in for a nice temperature rebound through the rest of this week. We're going to talk all about it coming up, and stay with us. We've got another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
The way many companies hire employees has changed over the years, and now there are 2,300 temporary help agencies in Ontario.
To make sure workers are treated fairly, the government is bringing in new rules January 1st, but some in the temp industry have concerns. Pat Foran has this Consumer Alert. Pat.
Thanks, Michelle and Nathan. The new rules are to make sure workers are paid fairly. Recruiting companies will have to be licensed and put up $25,000 to pay employees if there's a problem. But some smaller firms say that's unfair and could drive them out of business.
This is going to put people out of business. It's going to create unemployment.
The recruiting industry has major concerns about the government's new plan to license its industry. One of the main issues, starting January 1st, recruiters will need money on standby in the form of a letter of credit to pay employees in case they don't receive their wages.
They will need to provide a $25,000 security that can be used to repay workers for any wages stolen from them.
The government found in 2021 over 10,000 workers were owed $4.2 million in wages. The Ministry of Labour told CTV News, while the majority of recruiters follow the rules, inspections found some firms charging illegal fees, paying people below minimum wage, and denying them basic rights. Those in the recruitment business say while they support a license, they say the rules are too broad and cover agencies that don't handle employee payrolls.
This should not apply to direct hire agencies. We do not make the decision. We do not pay the employee. We're making the introduction.
Smaller recruiting agencies say the new regulations could put them out of business.
I'm going to have to take $25,000 to sit in the bank just to collect interest. I'm under 2 years of business. What am I supposed to do? Go get a loan? They're not going to give it to me.
Many of us don't even have the $25K to put aside for this. So that means complete shutdown in Ontario, and that's devastating.
Recruiters have started a petition calling on the province to change the rules so recruitment agencies that don't pay workers won't need the $25,000 letter of credit.
Do not take $25,000 away from a small business that's trying to run a business and hire people.
And the new rules bring Ontario in line with Alberta and British Columbia. Larger recruiting firms are less likely to be impacted by the changes, but smaller companies hope to meet at Queen's Park before the new year to voice their concerns. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
Well, imagine seeing this in person. Some lucky folks in Minnesota enjoyed an amazing show last night, courtesy of the Northern Lights. The phenomenon can happen when a solar flare sends a pulse of energy interacting with the Earth's magnetic field. It looks absolutely gorgeous. We have our own little phenomena happening right now. Well, I don't know, the sunset. It's gorgeous, and it's live.
Yeah, it is beautiful. A little early. We're noticing the sun's going down earlier and earlier, but that's normal this time of year.
It is. I mean, that's a side effect of us switching from summer to fall. The days are going to get progressively shorter here, but we get to enjoy a view like this at this time of day. And it's interesting, the Aurora Borealis, the Northern Lights, visible in some parts of Ontario last night too. Grand Valley, around the Huron shores. Tonight we are going to have very clear skies, but that's contributing to something else, the risk of frost. Weather is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train. Frost season is already underway in northeastern parts of Ontario. Timmins, for example. Typically in Toronto, we don't get our first frost until October. And while we're not expecting frost necessarily here in the GTA, just outside of it, we're talking Lake Scugog area, the Kawartha Lakes. A little bit of frost going to be possible as you're waking up tomorrow morning. Right now, though, it's still 20 degrees in Windsor, 19 in Toronto. Seasonal norm for us here locally is 20 degrees. Royal Island, the hot spot of the province today at 24, nice and comfortable. But there is another look at the frost advisory that is in place. It's pretty widespread, not just northern parts of the province, but much of the central areas and extending into the province of Quebec as well. Wake up weather looks like this. We will have clear skies for the most part tomorrow morning. Loads of sunshine. We'll climb into double-digit territory about midway through the morning. And then the afternoon is looking quite beautiful. Once again, 21 is what we're forecasting. Again, compared to average, this is pretty well where we expect to be. And those clear skies are going to persist for a couple of days here, with maybe an exception or two. I want to talk a little bit about southwest Ontario. Notice this disturbance might bring some areas, even as far as the west GTA, a little bit of cloud over the next couple of days. But I am anticipating that we're going to remain dry here locally. Going to pause this midday tomorrow just to show you maybe a couple of sprinkles of rain between Windsor and London. There's that cloud trying to creep into the GTA at times for Thursday. But again, it's still looking pretty nice overall. I'm going to keep it at mainly sunny for us Thursday. For the time being, daytime high 24. That looks like maybe our warmest day of the week, but it's still very pleasant as we head into the start of the weekend. A reminder that fall officially arrives very early on Saturday morning. Then we're going to start to see temperatures cool ever so slightly into the early part of next week. Just a heads up for your weekend plans. Sunday looks like we're certainly going to see a little more cloud and perhaps a few showers moving in as well. That's your look at weather for now. Nathan, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay. Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow will head to Ottawa next week to try to get the federal government to sign on to a new fiscal deal for the city.
It comes on the heels of the province's pledge to work on a new framework for Toronto, and municipal officials are optimistic it is the first step toward a financial fix. CTV's Natalie Johnson reports.
The day after her sit-down with the Premier, Mayor Olivia Chow has a spot on the shelf for the framed photo Doug Ford gave her.
This is a photo not from that long ago, 2012, and lots of people have passed away since, so in some ways life is short.
And there's Rob and there's Jack.
The gesture came as part of a pledge to work together moving forward. A softer tone from the Premier, who acknowledged Toronto needs big budget help.
It's not the gravy problem. Our plate is leaking. So he said, we'll give you a new plate.
Well, it's very good news.
The city manager, who for months has been warning that Toronto is facing a financial crisis, says the Premier's vision for a new fiscal framework that doesn't involve new taxes is possible.
Oh yeah, there are lots of ways to get there. And again, our purpose was to put out, we need to either raise revenue or we need to think about the way services are delivered and who pays for those services. So there are multiple pathways.
It feels like a turning point. Yesterday we had the mayor and the premier, two unusual friends, come together, and they're working together. That is leaps and bounds from where we started.
As for whether Ottawa will have a seat at the table here, the Deputy Prime Minister's office would say only that the federal government is a committed partner and that it is pleased that the province and the city are working together, which it calls appropriate and necessary.
Chow will be in Ottawa next week, calling on the feds to step up. The turnaround time is tight. The declared deadline for the financial fix is the end of November.
I guess I'm speaking for myself now when I say, whew, because it means that whatever they're talking about, there could be impact in the 2024 budget.
In the meantime, the city will move forward with the new municipal revenue tools council endorsed 2 weeks ago, including a luxury home tax and the removal of caps on hourly parking fees. The mayor stressing that the provincial piece doesn't have to drive up costs.
Having a new deal doesn't mean new taxes. It means that we are fixing the foundation.
Natalie Johnson, CTV News.
Also tonight, understanding obesity. Expert insight into the complexities of weight loss and why our vocabulary around the topic could use an update.
1 in 4 Canadians are living with obesity, and for decades, eat less, move more has been a mantra for weight loss.
The panel of experts is encouraging Canadians to change their attitudes and vocabulary around obesity. CTV Health reporter Pauline Chan reports.
I struggled with my weight my entire life. I started dieting in my teens, and at that time I probably only had 10, 15 pounds to lose, and I thought, let me try the next latest fad diet.
Sandra Aaliyah speaks out about the social pressures and stigma that people struggling with their weight often face. But the long-held belief that eat less, move more is the main solution was discussed by a panel of experts sponsored by Novo Nordisk, makers of the drug Ozempic.
And why that's problematic is because, one, obesity is a complex condition and there's no simple quick fix.
Dr. Sanjeev Sokolingam says for many patients, eat less, move more simply will not achieve the results they seek.
It could be genetics, could be other health conditions or metabolic conditions, could be mental health. It could be many other variables that are out there that can contribute to obesity.
And just as the causes are complex, so are the treatments, including lifestyle, counseling, occasionally surgery, and more recently, semaglutide medications like Ozempic.
It's not magic, but it can be a really handy tool for some patients that are appropriate to be pursuing this.
Dietitian Karen Fung counsels patients dealing with the complexities of weight management. Aaliyah says after years of struggle, she accepts and understands her body now. She says the key to recognizing problematic weight is seeing how it affects your health and lifestyle.
Really, what we have to look at is where people carry their weight. And we know if they carry it in their midsection that they're more susceptible to comorbidities that come with obesity, like diabetes and hypertension.
The panel says Canada has become a leader in dealing with obesity, launching the Obesity Canada website in 2020. Countries such as Ireland and Chile are now modeling their own programs after it. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
Is it goodbye bridal path, hello Houston for Drake?
I've been looking for a long time, trying to figure out, the right place for me to live where I belong outside of Toronto. And I finally, after all these years, found me a place in Houston, Texas.
Drake, who brags about being from the Sikhs, announced to the Houston audience of his It's All a Blur tour he has purchased a home in the Texas city. He will be in good company. It's the birthplace of Beyonce and Megan Thee Stallion. As for the multi-million-dollar mansion he built in the exclusive Bridle Path neighborhood in 2018 or his home in London, some wonder if he might put them on the market, but he is extremely wealthy, so owning multiple homes is not unusual.
She's a familiar face here on CTV News, and tonight viewers are getting an inside look at Sandy Ronaldo's remarkable career.
50 years of memorable moments. Action, Sandy. On
I like to be the center of attention.
and off the record.
Ronaldo celebrated her 50th anniversary with CTV News this year, and a second special, Sandy Ronaldo's 50-50, airs tonight. The hour-long special features interviews with many of Canada's biggest names from the past 5 decades, including Justin Bieber, Celine Dion, Wayne Gretzky, Margaret Trudeau, and many more.
It was almost like, you know, the feeling when you take out an old family album and you go back through pictures and you savor over them. You know, you look back 30 years ago and then memories come back to you. That's exactly what it was like for me. You know, seeing myself all those years ago, seeing these people all those years ago. And in some cases, we were able to follow up. So, you know, it's then and now, and that I found particularly fascinating.
And you can watch Sandy Ronaldo's 50-50 tonight at 10 right here on CTV.
Stars Tonight is brought to you by Lastman's Bad Boy. Who's better? Nobody.
Good evening. On the next CP24 Breakfast, celebrating their third album in 3 years, Max Kerman from Arkells will drop by to talk about their latest album, Laundry Pile, and how you can catch them playing some of their new songs live. That's on the next CP24 Breakfast, up first at 5:30 a.m.
To stop that assault, the officer made the decision to deploy his conducted energy weapon.
Updating our top stories, police tasered a 12-year-old Oshawa girl who allegedly attacked 3 staff members and a fellow student. Officers say they tried to de-escalate the situation, but the girl was irate. Police say she was not injured.
Local reaction to allegations India was behind the killing of a Canadian Sikh in BC in June. Some say there is a sense of justice. Others want proof of who's responsible. And some are expressing concern for their safety if they return to India.
There is still much negotiating to do, but this is as serious as it gets, and the consequences are real.
Talks are continuing tonight between Ford Canada and the union representing 5,600 workers. Unifor's deadline was extended by 24 hours to 11:59 p.m. It followed a last-minute offer from the automaker.
On the markets, the Canadian dollar traded 27 points higher to 74.39 U.S. American benchmark oil is down a dime to 90.50 a barrel. And the TSX Composite Index fell 273 points to 20,218.89.
Disney is reportedly investing $60 billion in its theme parks and cruises. The New York Times says the money will be spent over the next 10 years and is nearly double what was allocated in the past decade. It's unclear how much will go toward Disney properties in the U.S. versus its international locations. This announcement comes at a time when attendance at Disney parks is down due to a number of factors. They include higher ticket prices.
The Blue Jays kick off their final road trip of the season in the Bronx tonight with the stakes very high.
And now a well-hit ball to center. And it's off the wall.
After sweeping Boston on the weekend, Toronto's looking to stay on a roll. The Jays hold the second wild card spot right now, but both Seattle and Texas are only 1 game behind. Toronto plays the Yankees again next week at Rogers Centre and will face a tough Tampa squad twice before the season ends.
Just ahead, not your average commute. Wrestlers out of the ring and into the aisles of a Japanese bullet train. The intense brawl that had passengers on the edge of their seats.
Tonight, the widening rift between Canada and India, escalating tensions as India rejects allegations of murder and retaliates with a diplomatic expulsion of its own. We'll have a reaction from the Sikh community later on CTV National News.
In Japan, passengers boarded a train for the ride of their lives.
Watch what happened when an entire car was turned into a wrestling ring. Two professional wrestlers squared off in the aisle as delighted passengers cheered them on. But the combatants were not allowed to destroy any parts of the train's interior. This event was organized, the organizer rented out the entire car with tickets for 75 seats, selling out within a half hour. They say it was the first wrestling match held inside a bullet train. And this brawl took place at speeds of nearly 285 kilometers per hour during a trip from Tokyo to Nagoya.
Elsewhere in Japan, there was another show of impressive strength. Some kids got a lesson in teamwork when they used a rope to pull a Boeing 787. The children and their parents took part in a tug of war with a 35,000-pound aircraft east of Tokyo. The Narita International Airport organized the event to encourage interest in aviation among young people. It seems Japan is the place to be right now.
And if those stories don't make you smile, this sunset will, and these sunny days ahead will too.
Very much so. The only fly in the ointment, if you will, is the fact that we do have a frost advisory for tonight, and that's because temperatures could get quite cool in some parts of our province. Here's one more look. This is outside of the GTA, but it includes areas like Uxbridge as well as Peterborough. Tomorrow is looking like another beautiful day in our city. Look at that, 21 degrees, loads of sunshine, and the 7-day forecast not bad either. Just watch for a bit of a change as we make our way into the weekend. Nathan and Michelle.
All right, thank you, Lindsay. Be sure to join Omar Sachedina tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Zarada Ullman with our next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and all of us at CTV News, thank you for watching and have a good night.